I had those this month, and everything looked in ship-shape order for the vouchers, so I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Okay, and a second.
Second.
And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We'll move on to community comments. Do we have anybody signed up?
I'll go ahead. One.
Thanks, Sarah.
For sure, one.
Do we have one? Okay.
Can go to,
Yeah, okay.
can go to Keith, yeah.
Yeah, as long as I give it back to Becky. All right. I'll read the guidelines for community comments. Welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education of the School District of Amery. We are pleased that you are interested in school district educational issues. Your input may be very beneficial to the development of appropriate educational programs. You may address the board only during the community comments time on the agenda. The Amery School District residents, district employees, and guests invited by the board may address the board at the discretion of the presiding board member. In order for the meeting to flow smoothly, we would appreciate the following guidelines be followed by anyone wishing to address the Board of Education. For those wishing to speak before the board, a sign-up sheet will be available prior to the start of the meeting. If the topic noted on the sign-up sheet is deemed to be out of order, the presiding board member will inform the person wishing to speak prior to the start of the meeting. Comment time is limited to 5 minutes per person. However, the time limit may be increased or decreased at any time by the presiding board member. The time allotted for community comments may also be extended at the determination of the presiding board member. Comments and suggestions related to the school district operation are welcome. Personal criticism of members of the Board of Education or its employees of the Amery School District is out of order. Please stand to be recognized. After being recognized, please give your name and address for the record. The board normally receives citizen input and does not respond or debate. If there is a need for an answer or response to a concern or issue, the district administrator or another of the administrators may get back to you within the next week. If your concern requires board action, it may be placed on the agenda for a future board meeting. I'd like to thank you for that, and it is Joan Ritten.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name is Joan Ritten. I live in the Blackbrook Township. Okay, I'm going to start from June of 2020. June of 2020, there was a presenter, I would call it, who the name, she said her name was Soon Gunther or Gunther. I'm not sure of the name. She said she represented Amery United. And she went on to offer some resources, books, speakers, if we wanted them, the school district, and she would be available if anybody needed them. And when I listened to this video, it was like, Amery United, that sounds like a really good thing. Sounds like we should all get together and have hot dogs. So I popped in just recently, last couple board meetings, because a few things have been going on. So June 22nd, 2021, Joe Vierkant, a parent and a law enforcement officer, came to speak at the board. He spoke about the books, he read some of the books, and I think a lot of people here remember that. So a week later, there was something in the paper, Amery Press, from Soon Gunther, commenting on, and I'll read you one of the paragraphs in there. What does it mean? What does it demonstrate when local law enforcement repeatedly bring the latest conservative boogeyman talking points to our school board? They've been swept up in the latest trend to reject the truth and want to pressure our school district administrator and educators to revert to teaching a watered down and whitewashed version of U.S. history. That's insulting to our local law enforcement and law enforcement everywhere. Signed by Soon Gunther. Who is Amery United? A video was, and so I figured, who is Amery United? Who are they? So I looked on the internet. My phone has a world of knowledge in it. All I have to do is plug in a bunch of words. I'm old school. I usually don't do that. But this really, I started to wonder, Who is Amery United? I popped in Amery United, and this is the part that really got me. A video was put together by someone by the name of Kenny Gunther, and right on it, it said, abolish police. Well, so then I looked up the word, just to make sure I had it right. Abolish the police. The action or an act of abolishing a system, practice, or an institution. So here's the thing. I'm only hoping that our school district isn't affiliated with abolishing the police. And as you can tell, I'm pretty upset about it right now. Just talking about it. I've lived here for over 30 years. I brought my kids to the school because I wanted to get them out of the cities and I wanted them to go to good schools. And all those years my kids were here, we had great education. I loved the teachers. We got to pick up the phone and talk to them. There's not a problem. I want the same for all the kids in our district. I want it for all of them, not just for one or two. So, I go back to abolishing the police. I'm hoping that this school district doesn't support that by any means by being affiliated with Amery United. It's upsetting, it's discouraging. I hope it's not happening. I would like a phone call from the administrator, please. I'll give you my number after the meeting.
Okay.
I want to talk about it. And I guess thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
And we'll move on now to administrative reports.
Is this still the public comment section? Public comment.
Well, it was a sign up before the meeting.
He came late. We
Sure.
could hear
You
him.
You could still.
Sure,
If you give
absolutely.
your
You
name
wanna-
so we
you
can
wanna
get it on
come
the
and
list
sign
here.
in, if you would. Yep.
Yep, just put your name on the list there
Yep.
so we got you.
So we got you down
Accounted
there.
for.
All right. Thank you.
I might go a few moments over 5 minutes, but it's not going to be much, so please,
All right, yep.
please be patient. My name is James Dodge. I'm here to talk about critical race theory in the school curriculum. I don't know if 5 minutes is going to be enough really to dig into this topic, but that's what I've restricted my speech to. I have three students in the Amery School District, 3 kids. Some of them aren't school age yet, but I also went to Amery schools. I'm a graduate of the University of Minnesota. I have an undergrad in history. My main focus was on the intellectual history of socialism, the French Revolution, Marxism, 20th century communist and socialist experiments, and in particular I focused on the Soviet Union. The reasons I studied this were to ask why the outcomes of communist systems in the 20th century were so tragic, and they were. One of the reasons I studied this was because I thought that I wanted to salvage the reputation of socialism from the horrible reputation of communism. And in my studies, I think the main thing that really comes as the common thread through all these movements was that identity politics, or a common enemy narrative, is what underpinned them. It was the same narrative, of course, in Nazi Germany, the common enemy narrative, the scapegoating of Jews. Of course, in Germany, it was also the identity of the Aryan that they were elevating. In the USSR, as well as in communist China and in various other communist movements across the 20th century, the identity politic was the proletariat versus the bourgeoisie. So that would be the owners of the means of production versus the workers. That was the same identity politics, just like in Nazi Germany, which led to the Holocaust, 10 million dead, 60 million dead in the USSR, 90 million dead in Mao's Cultural Revolution. CRT, and I think I have some authority to speak on this subject, knowing the intellectual origins of communist movements and Marxism, is embodied identity politics. It centers racial identity, in fact. Intersectionality, which is promulgated by critical race theorists like Kimberly Crenshaw, centers race, of course. This is an adaptation of Marxist conflict theory, which of course is an indication of the oppressor versus the oppressed. That would be in classical Marxism, the bourgeoisie versus the proletariat. This has been translated into cultural identity, race. This common enemy narrative of intersectionality and critical race theory flies in the face of the civil rights movement. It flies in the face of Martin Luther King and his teachings. In fact, it doesn't expand at all on the civil rights movement. It rejects the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King taught a common humanity ethic. He taught an aspiration to a colorblind society, a society that would transcend mere identity categories like skin color. He taught radical love. He taught loving one's enemy. He didn't teach a common enemy narrative. He taught a common humanity narrative. CRT is, in fact, again, I have some authority to speak to this subject, a far-left, Marxist, utopian belief system. Richard Delgado, one of the OGs, or old guys, of the critical race theory movement, who has written one of the main textbooks on the subject of critical race theory, says that critical race theory questions the foundations of the liberal order. He says that critical race theory rejects neutral constitutional principles. He says that critical race theory rejects equality theory, which is, of course, the belief that everyone is equal in society and their identity shouldn't matter. He says that critical race theory rejects Enlightenment rationalism. I saw Soon Gunther giving a speech before this board, the video of it. She's my sister. I disagree with her vehemently, arguing that critical race theory was about teaching critical thinking. It is not. It is quite the opposite. It rejects Enlightenment rationalism. It rejects scientific methods. It rejects evidence-based arguments. It rejects critical thinking wholeheartedly. In fact, it calls these things white supremacist. Critical race theory is a utopian belief system. Critical race theory is overtly Marxist. It draws on philosophers like Jacques Derrida, Antonio Gramsci, Michel Foucault, Herbert Marcuse, and Max Horkheimer, all avowed Marxists. In contemporary contexts, leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement, the three women who started #BLM and run the movement, call themselves, in public interviews, trained Marxists. They call for the abolition of police. They also call for the abolition of prison systems. Another example of a utopian belief. Angela Davis, another popular critical race theorist, has publicly referred to herself as a communist. My point is not that Marxism can't provide us any insights. I have at times called myself a Marxist. I think it's worth considering economic inequality. This is why my project as a college student was to look at the history of socialism, communism, and the intellectual history, and the history of the ideas. That's not my point. My point is that critical race theory is clearly a biased belief system. It is a far-left belief system. Frankly, I think it's basically a religion. I don't see what distinguishes it from religion other than that it's about politics. In reality, I would be just as upset to hear, and I don't know the extent to which CRT has been adopted, I'll get to that, by the curriculum in the public schools here. But I would be very upset if I was to learn that creationism was going to be adopted in the curriculum of Amery Public Schools, or any public schools. I'd be upset if I learned that evolutionary theory was going to be banned from being taught in public schools. Because, of course, it's not upon the public schools to teach students what to think. It's your job to educate students. To teach them how to think. To give them the tools to think for themselves. In closing, the largest school teachers union in the country, the National Education Association, has publicly embraced critical race theory. And it says that they will be teaching critical race theory principles in 14,000 schools across this country. My concerns are not unfounded. This is a real phenomenon. I don't know the extent to which critical race theory principles have been embraced or are likely to be implemented in the curriculum of Amery Public Schools, and that's not really the point. The point is that there is a constitutional prohibition against the state establishing a religion. This is a public institution. It's the First Amendment. I think the board of this school and the administrators of the school district have a fiduciary responsibility not to violate constitutional law, to open the school district of Amery up to litigation under constitutional grievances. I think it's also your responsibility not to utilize taxpayer money for purposes for which it was not allocated. Specifically, I think I speak for many when I say this. First and foremost, purposes for which that money is not allocated is teaching a belief system to our students. I also think I speak for everyone when I say I want transparency about the curriculum. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. That's it for that, so now we'll move on to administrative reports.
Okay, well, typically the administrative team has had off the month of July. Jessica D'Ambrosio is here. She is extra dedicated. No, she is on for a different item on the agenda, so there aren't any administrative reports for the month of July.
Is there anything you wanted to update from the reports in the?
But the update I have will be done later on when we talk about the budget.
Okay, sounds good. Next up will be Tracy Hendrickson with the Community Education and District Communication Report.
Hello, I'm here for my yearly scintillating report about community education / communications / community engagement. Sort of all falls together in one. It's kind of hard to separate the three. So I will start by talking about just a basic summary review of community education in the past year. What you see on the screen is very basic, very simple. And community ed looked a lot different this year, like everything else that we did. So last fall, I pretty much knew by this time of year that I probably wouldn't be printing a community education catalog because I just didn't know that people were interested or what the fall was going to look like to be bringing people into school. So I planned to still do what we could do, but we didn't print a catalog. Probably the first time in between 25 and 30 years, the school district of Amery did not have a printed fall community education catalog. But I was going to do what I could do, and then was hoping that by January we would have the second catalog. Well, January came, and people were still very reluctant, and we still were following a lot of guidelines. So there were no catalogs last year, which was strange, but still managed to do some things. So I'll just quickly go through kind of what did happen in community education, even though it was a smaller program than usual. So 62 total offerings, combination of classes, workshops, youth rec camps, recreation opportunities. On a normal school year, there would be 3 times that. So glad we were able to kind of still put some things out there. 57 education enrichment classes, workshops, youth camps, a couple recreation opportunities. We tried for part of the winter or I shouldn't say we tried, but toward the end of the winter we did open up open gym for basketball for I think maybe 6 to 8 weeks. We did open the high school gym up for pickleball partway through the winter. We were planning 3 trips. The Orpheum was very hopeful, continually hopeful, and then kept canceling and postponing before they finally said, we can't do this, hold off. But I think we will be going to Frozen this fall, finally. We probably will be going to Hamilton, but not till 2023, and we are going to Come From Away in 2022. So things are coming back, things are happening, but a lot of postponing, a lot of refunding. So I actually had 62 things that we put out there. Still ended up canceling 36 of them, or 26 of them, but we actually completed 36, which I think was pretty good during a COVID year. And when I actually crunched these numbers, I was a little bit surprised myself that we actually served over 800 people. I worked with 30 supervisors, leaders, instructors, and we still brought people into the school buildings to share our resources in our buildings for over 200 hours during the school year. So we did what we could. People were happy that we could do the things that we could do, and I have some instructors who are very eager to get back at it and to get going again. And then the financial piece, I also was surprised at that, but I guess when you don't pay to print a catalog or to mail a catalog, then I was surprised we actually came out ahead. I mean, just a little bit, and that's just basic numbers. This is what people paid to take classes, and this is what went out as direct class expenses. And I didn't think we'd come out ahead, and we did, so I was pleased with that. So, I mean, we did meet the goals of community ed, sharing our school resources, making the building accessible, fulfilling needs of the community, doing what we could do, working with local organizations. All those things still happen, just on a much smaller scale. But like a lot of things with COVID, and a lot of us in the past however many months here, we kind of look back at what we were forced to do and reevaluate what things are going to look like moving ahead. And I think community education is going to look very different as we move ahead. So this fall, I am not going to print a catalog again, I don't think. I've been working with some instructors. I think rather than working on usually what we've done for years, every fall there's anywhere from a 14 to a 20-page catalog. In the winter there's another one, and it sort of traps me into two big projects. I'm going to spread that out throughout the year. We're probably going to print, maybe rather than this big catalog, we'll probably print a one-page document, cardstock, front and back, with just minor details, directing people to go to the website for their online registration. Something more of a hang this on your refrigerator, put this somewhere where you can see it, rather than a catalog that might get buried in a newspaper pile. And rather than doing that twice, we'll probably do it 3 or 4 times per year. And then we still will continue with our district newsletter that includes community education materials. And we still work with the Free Press, and we use the family folders, and we use social media. So I'm thinking we're going to give that a shot this year. We're going to make it look a little bit different. Change is kind of planning things for me. It doesn't tie me into 2 big semesters. We can spread it out, makes it a little more flexible, so I think that'll be really nice. So I'm looking forward to that, looking forward to the change, and still doing what we're doing, just it'll just be shared a little differently, and I think it'll be good. So any questions on community education?
Must have come to my house knowing that I was sorting through the newspaper.
I know.
For
Are you saying that my catalogs are in your newspaper?
They are in my newspaper pile, but I keep them. I heard good things about the recreations on the people coming in, playing pickleball, basketball with their masks, fogging up their glasses, and.
But they were there. But the gym was open and they were playing, so we were okay.
But adherence to all the guidelines that we had. So thanks, Tracy, for making that work.
Yeah, we did, and it all, we had babysitter training classes, our barn quilting, we still did some DNR, some hunter education, following DNR requirements. We did a blacksmithing class, we did a lot of different things, and it worked, and people were willing just to participate and do what they had to do, so it was good. All right, so district communications. I truly believe that, as a district, we work really hard. So that families, community members, anyone who wants to know what's happening in the school district of Amery should know what's happening, because it's all pretty much out there. This list that I put up here for tonight is just sort of an overview of our communication channels that I pulled from the district communications plan, which we finalized last fall. And I'll just kind of go through the key things on here. Some things have changed, some things are changing. The communication plan is a work in progress that will continue to change. But I want to start with the most exciting part, or I think it's the most exciting part. If you have not been on the district website in the last 2 weeks, you need to do that, because it's a completely new template. It's been updated. I started working with CMS for schools, so that's just a screenshot of the front of the homepage. But if you go there and you scroll down, you can see it's very interactive. Does a lot of neat things, and everything's just kind of laid out a little bit differently. But we did that for 4 reasons. CMS for schools is through CISA 6, and that's who we contract with for our website. First of all, it just needed cleanup. When you have your website, years and years, you have pages that are deep and lots of links and PDFs out there. So a lot of updating. We made it's obviously more modern. But the two keys were accessibility and responsiveness. So accessibility means that now, for the most part, our website is much more accessible for those, for example, if someone has vision impairments and they use what's called a screen reader to read the website to them, our website is now cleaned up so that someone using a screen reader knows what's on the page. They can access the information. And that happened in a lot of different ways, removing formatting, removing tables, using headings so that you can direct the screen readers to go through a page from top to bottom. And that's something we have to do by law. So our website has come a long way with accessibility. And then the little blue button in the top left corner, if you click on that, for people who need to change fonts, who need to change colors because of disabilities, that is a tool that allows them to do that. And then obviously we have, and you can't see it on that screenshot, but the entire website can be read in any language. So fully accessible, and I'm sure that I can still go through and find some pages that aren't quite there, but that will always be the case. The other thing, responsiveness. If you go to our website now and you open it on the computer, it fills the full screen, and then you open it on your phone and it all automatically adjusts, or you open it on a tablet and it adjusts, so it's responsive to any type of device. So it's very user-friendly. So I don't know, maybe I'm the only one that gets excited to open it in a lot of different places and see how things look, but I do that. So anyway, those are the 4 reasons we updated our website. And it's a work in progress. It always will be, because there's just so much information there that we're constantly finding pages or pieces and parts that we need to be updating and changing. And we have tools now where we can flag it. We'll read and tell us this page is accessible, this one is not. You need to redo this sentence. So that's just kind of always happening. So anyway, that's the biggest thing, the newest thing. We've updated the website. Because the website is now mobile friendly, we are going to non-renew the app. So if someone, I'm probably going to have to teach people who don't know that they can take the website and you can save any page of the website onto the home page of any device, and you can get right to all your favorite pages without the app. The app we basically was just a link to lots of things within the website. So we're going to get rid of the app. We're increasing our use of PowerSchool. Parents K-12, 4K through 12, using PowerSchool for daily bulletins and trying to streamline our communication that way. Continuing to use Bright Arrow. Switcher Studio was new this year with our live streaming and our video recording, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And then social media. Obviously, we have our school district Facebook page. I also oversee the We Are Amery live streaming Facebook page, along with the We Are network. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. So those things all continue, and we're doing quite well. We'll continue with our district newsletter, 3 of those going out per school year to over 7,800 mailboxes, so within our district and beyond. District calendar printed this summer, and then we have a great relationship with the Free Press, cable TV, local radio, and was something I found that has been very valuable, not just recently, but I feel like it's happening more and more, as I make connections with some of the other important social media pages within the community, whether it's the community club, what else would it be, the AEDC, Shop Amery, whatever it might be. They share our stuff, we share theirs, and things. It's just huge. It's a community effort using social media across the board to make sure that we're all sharing our information and sharing our news. And for us, with our social media, really our number one goal is to celebrate our kids. It's about, look what so-and-so did. We're celebrating our FFA kids just had this amazing accomplishment. Just today, and I haven't even retweeted it yet, we have a current student, Coy Hopke, is on. He just won another national title today as a sophomore. He's wrestling out in Fargo. If he wins one more, I think he wins something called a Triple Crown. I'm learning so much about wrestling. Alicia Munson, our alumni today. Today, the Eau Claire news station was out here to interview her parents. The day Alicia took 3rd at the Olympic trials, I threw it on the school district page, like we do all of that stuff. And within a few days, and I just printed this now today, but that post off the school district page has reached 136,000 people, was shared 571 times, 198 comments, and was liked or loved by 1,600 plus people. So, I don't know, I think we're getting the word out who we are and what we do, and just sharing that our kids do some great things. And then at the bottom, video recording. It probably was good that community ed kind of did this year, because video recording did this year, and I don't know that I could have done them both at once. So thank goodness we had connected to We Are Amery before COVID, because we kind of already had an idea how it worked and what we needed to do. But it was a crazy year. I learned a lot about video recording, about live streaming, about iOS devices, video editing, video publishing. And I just was off the top of my head trying to think. We did at least 8 concerts that we recorded, we edited, we published. Graduation ceremony, the senior walk, senior awards night. The very first thing we did a recording of the homecoming field show so that we could play the video during halftime of the live stream of the field show or the football game, Grand March, virtual Veterans Day, and a minimum of 55 athletic events. So it was a lot. I learned a lot. I enjoyed it. I don't ever want to do that again. Never. We don't ever want to have to go back to doing that. But that sort of took over our communications this year. Like who's doing what, and how can we take what these kids are doing and share it with their families, with our community, when we can't put them in the gym and we can't bring people into concerts. But I think our music teachers, our coaches, our athletes, our students did an amazing job. So it was really rewarding. It was huge, very huge. So now that we know how that looked, now once again, we'll move ahead with this year and kind of decide where we go from here and what we will be recording and streaming, because people still expect live or athletic events to be live streamed, but I think we'll just do varsity, and we get a little better handle on it, I guess. So moving forward, this is kind of where we are right now. I mean, as well as just lots of other projects and district things, and working with Dr. Dörfler and Becky and making things happen, and we're strategic planning, but these are the ways we get our word out there, and we'll keep working with all this stuff. So do you have any questions?
Well, thank you so much for all your work. And yeah, I mean, I have parents that are not near, and they loved that they got to watch games and concerts and events that, they wouldn't have even been able to attend, even if they would have been allowed, because they live too far away. So it was really fun that they were able to watch a lot of those things. So thank you for all your work, and I know we'll have to figure out how and what we stream and put out there, but they really enjoyed it and appreciated it. So
right, we did make our faraway grandparents and snowbirds very happy. So now we need to balance that out. That it's not all going to be there, but we'll keep doing something. We were going to do it before COVID anyway. So
Yeah.
Even aside from the live stream, just updating the Facebook pages, the social media pages that you've done with the pictures, and celebrating all the accomplishments, and just some of the everyday things even that's going on in the classrooms, and great picture takers and things that we have employed in the district, and go to these events and provide you with pictures, and you're right on Johnny on the spot putting things out there. That's a lot of work, and thanks a lot for doing that, because it really makes a difference to celebrate our kids. So.
I enjoy it, and I do have a lot of help doing that. That can't be done by one person.
You do, absolutely. We have a lot of good picture takers out there.
We do, and people know, share the information, we'll get it out, and we have some good systems to get information to me, because I can't be in all the classrooms, I can't be in all the buildings. So we have a lot of really superstar teachers and people who
it's
get that
truly
information
a team
out.
effort, and you did a great job. It's been great to see the progression of all of that. So it's been fun.
Thanks, Char.
Yeah. Now you'll have to work on online concessions so the boosters sell stuff online.
Yeah.
Popcorn delivered.
Yeah.
Yes, that's not happening, Keith.
The hot dog mobile.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy.
Next, we will go to our informational items, and that will be Katie Johnson and Kate Weisenbeck with the mental health grant update.
Hi, I'm Katie Johnson. I'm one of the school psychologists here.
And I'm Kate Weisenbeck. I'm the counselor at Amery Middle School. We just wanted to share a little bit as we wrapped our 2-year grant cycle up. kind of talk about what we did and what our goals were, and then moving forward, what we're going to be looking at. The first thing is just to make sure that everyone understands when we're talking about school mental health, that's not just about kids who are in crisis or have been diagnosed with anxiety or depression. School mental health is really all of these supports and tools that we use to make sure that we're supporting all kids. Good mental health structure and framework helps kids who are thriving to excel. They help all kids. And so as we talk about school mental health, just make sure that you're understanding that this is really about all kids and what's best for them. And all these school mental health supports help all kids. And also, if you guys have questions, you're more than welcome to interrupt. So how do we improve student mental health? Basically, we use this triangle here as our foundation for what we try to do with students. There is a link on there. I think it's an awesome publication. It's like 30 or 40 pages long. But it really explains what the framework looks like, what is it intended to do, and answers lots of specific questions. And so just like any model, you really have to make sure that the foundation and the base is strong. So when we want to support students who are struggling or having challenges, that we have all these other things in place to really make sure that they have what they need. One thing that you might notice on here is it specifically talks about trauma-sensitive practices and also integrating school mental health with positive behavioral interventions and supports, or PBIS. So trauma-sensitive schools, TSS and PBIS, are two things you've heard a lot over the past few years. So those two strategies and schools of thought fit really well with the school mental health framework. And so that falls in line with what we've been trying to do as a district, with focusing on those two of our big three initiatives. So again, what we've done with the grant is really looked at best practices, evidence-based research and curriculum, and we're really focusing on the bottom of that triangle. We really want to make sure that our students feel good about coming to school, that they feel safe here, that they feel that the staff cares about them, has their best interests in mind. And so we really want to make that foundation stronger. And we'll continue to talk a little bit about that later in the next grant application, which Katie will talk about soon. But really focusing on that foundation. Our goals for this 2-year grant cycle were number one, to improve the district's overall mental health framework. So that triangle model that we just looked at, there's a needs assessment that goes along with that, and we've been working on that as a district to kind of identify and make sure that we have all of these pieces in place. So you have been using that mental health framework and needs assessment to really examine what we're doing, make sure that we're using those research-based methods. And then our other goal is to see a reduction in the amount of students who are experiencing depression and anxiety. We've talked to you before. There's a lot of kids who are really struggling. The statistics are somewhere like 1 in 5. And we definitely see that. That is not just specific to Amery. It's all over. So we're continuing to see students struggling more and more with mental health. So that was our 2 goals for that 2-year cycle. Yeah.
Can I interrupt? The needs assessment that you're talking about to ID the kids for and to build that foundation. Could you just talk a little bit about those needs assessments? When are they given? Who are they given to? And then what does those what does that
Okay, I think, are you asking about our screeners?
Yeah,
Our
like
student screeners?
Yep, the needs
Okay.
assessment. Just, I mean, I guess to
So-
refresh our memories, how that
Yeah,
all.
so having a universal screener for students is something that they recommend in the framework of mental health. And so right now, the high school has been doing a depression screener, and that is offered to 9th grade students. That's with parental consent. And I don't know for sure what our participation rates were this year. Everything was lower with COVID, obviously, and we had kids who just weren't here too.
Right.
And then in the middle school, we do an anxiety screener for 7th grade. And that's pretty similar. It's parent consent. And the first year we really kicked that off. We had really, really high participation. Lots of kids saying, yeah, I'm worried about anxiety. I'm not sure if it's what I should do about it. So we had really good interest in that middle school screener as well. So those two things will definitely continue.
Okay, and those are the two assessments that we use. So what about like 6th or 8th grade students, encompassing in the middle school at that point? So what about 6th and 8th grade or do we just kind of take that general 7th grade and kind of extrapolate from that?
Well, we started with the 9th graders, and so we thought, well, it kind of makes sense to maybe get them at 7th grade. I think we would love to try to offer more of that, but when you're doing a screening, you also have to follow up with interventions and support and resources.
Okay.
So that means offering support groups for students, small groups. It means referrals to mental health counselors. It means individual counseling. So there is the assessment and identifying, but there's still work for us to do as school professionals.
And those assessments, and I know the 9th grade one for sure is anonymous, correct? Is that anonymous or?
Those are done individually, so it's
Okay.
just one-on-one with the screener, and nobody outside of that screening knows that the
Okay.
student took it or what their results
Okay.
are. So it's not necessarily anonymous, but it is confidential.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's the same for the 7th grade one as well.
Okay.
So.
All right, so what we accomplished this year, again, it was a different year, but I think we still accomplished quite a bit. A lot of what we did is provide resources, tons of staff development and trainings. We bought lots of books. We bought lots of book study books, sets of books looking at behavior management, looking at trauma. We did some online book studies with staff, which they really liked because they could do it kind of on their own time and respond to questions versus showing up once a week and doing it, in an evening or something like that. Our goal is to create a professional library of books that staff can check out on trauma, on positive behavioral supports, on those kind of things. We beefed up what we're doing for evidence-based universal curriculum. We have second step in place now, daycare through 8th grade. So daycare including the littles, and we also provided some resources for the after-school program. And then all the way through 8th grade, we have that in place so that kids are getting that good, solid social emotional curriculum. That's kind of when we hit kids hard with the social emotional learning. In high school, we also have some social emotional lessons. Those are more targeted, they're more small. A lot of them have to do with study skills or, how to support a friend or, if you're not feeling well, what do you do? And they're shorter, more targeted skills rather than the big curriculums that we do pre-K through 8. The high school did some great work with stigma reduction, mental health campaign this year. They also did some great work with the transition to high school video. So lots of things looking at stigma reduction. It was a hard year for staff, learning new technology, coming off of COVID, we know that, so trying to support staff in wellness opportunities, in that kind of thing. And then, as always, integrating PBIS and the trauma-sensitive schools into everything we do. I think Kate touched on that. We're constantly working on how to take those principles and weave them into what we do on a daily basis. So future funding, we submitted a new grant application. It's again a 2-year grant cycle like it was for this year, these last 2 years. We have not heard yet whether we have received it. I think we'll probably hear in late summer at some point. We're hoping for the whole amount of $150,000 over 2 years. And the grant writing cycle it's a pretty intense cycle. We really look at all of our data. We look at everything we can mine from the district and put together to show what's our need for supporting our kids. But we've had great success in the past, and we're really looking forward to hearing if we can continue that work. But the programs that we've started with the grant will continue whether we have the new grant or not. We've created those programs so that they're self-sustaining and that we're able to do those things regardless.
And Katie, with the $150,000 grant, were there certain stipulations that we had to implement with that grant money, or?
They really wanted to follow that framework that Kate showed you with the triangle. So really, we wrote the previous one and the new one, looking at where are the pieces of that framework that we could use some
holes to fill?
Yep, some
And
holes to fill.
there's specific action steps for each of the goals. So all the funding has to specifically tie to those actions.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And then looking to the future with the new grant, we've really spent a lot of time in the last few years, especially this year, looking at collaboration with our community partners. We meet really frequently with behavioral health from the Amery Clinic, looking at a partnership between those clinicians and our staff and our students. We meet with the police department. We've developed a good partnership with them in supporting kids' mental health, and also the Mental Health Task Force of Polk County. Working with all three of those, we hope to keep going with those, creating some kind of coalition type thing to support our kids' mental health in our community. Still gonna look at social emotional learning. That's that foundational piece that all kids get. Understanding emotions, understanding all of those things are, that's gonna be the underpinning of what we would do. Continuing staff development. We learned a lot this year about how to do some innovative staff development. We'd like to keep that up and do more in-person classes as well, meeting the needs of individual educators or the whole staff. And in more of compassion, resilience, staff wellness, we want to keep up with that. We're hoping to get back to a staff wellness day where we can provide some support to that and helping staff to learn some resources and tools they can use. And continue the stigma reduction, working on making sure that everybody in the community knows that, you know, mental health, having mental health difficulties is okay. It's normal, and it's normal to receive help. And we'll just continue that work as we go.
Could you just give a couple examples of how the collaboration that you have with the partners that you mentioned, like the police department and our mental health coalition and things like that? Can you just give a couple examples of how that partnership has worked with the school and building relationships with the kids here and our staff here?
Well, we could go back to pre-COVID, because that
Exactly, of course.
is really kind of the track we were hoping to. We did start as a group of kind of those key players. And we all kind of talked and said, you know what, we're all really facing these mental health struggles. Let's work together, share resources, you know, understand what you need and understand what we need and work together. And so we had a nice kind of system set up for that. The Amery Regional Hospital was kind of running that and coordinating it for us. And then COVID hit, and so all those meetings kind of couldn't happen anymore. But that's really our hope, that we can get back to some of those partnerships and meetings and just having those conversations with some of those key players. We'd love to get some more, you know, like parents involved and parent reps, and kind of push that further than we were able to this year. We do meet with the police department quarterly, I believe, and collaborate and discuss, you know, things that are happening in the school. So that's been very valuable.
We meet with behavioral health probably quarterly as well, either online or in person to discuss that. And going back to parent training and parent involvement, we're hoping to this coming year, and we'll talk more about this in the future, partner with the Mental Health Task Force to do some parent training here in Amery, like kind of a big day of parent training and parent involvement around mental health and wellness and that kind of thing. So we're excited about that idea, but we're just in the planning stages for that.
Fabulous. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
It's too bad that COVID kind of sidetracked that, but building those partnerships are super important, and debriefing each department, the behavioral health resources people, along with our police departments when they've certainly been here to help in our district at every level, and then to kind of debrief what those incidences are, what we're seeing, how they're helping, how we can help prevent some of those things from happening. I think those are huge things that we have on the horizon that we need to really focus on. It sounds like you've got a great handle on starting that. Pairing with those partnerships is amazing. So
We did have a prepared training, which is like a school safety, crisis management, and we were able to have a rep from Amery Police Department there. So that was wonderful for them to understand, and the hospital. So for them to understand kind of how our crisis system works and give us their input. So that was really great, and you know, we're just hoping that there's more opportunity to do some of those things. Not when we have the grant money, it's so much easier to make that happen. So hopefully, it's going to be a normal year.
yeah, great. Well, we'll pray for that grant money to come through, and continue all the work of it's really important work that we're doing here, so.
I think the last thing was just, to thank the administration and board for supporting, these things.
It's an ongoing.
It's tough work, it's a huge project, it's very time consuming, and it's hard to know what the right thing to do is, and there's a lot of work to be done, so.
It's ongoing.
We're just very happy that it continues to be a priority in the district. So,
Yeah. You guys have
thank
been
you
here a
for
long time, so you've seen, between the two of you, how many years, without giving out too much, how many years do you have between the two of you now?
Makes us sound really old. 34, 35 years.
Yeah, I think I'm on 7,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Katie, you were here when my bigs were little, so. You're-
Yeah, I've got a couple years on Kate. But I'm not older than her at all.
You don't look at it all. It blows my mind to think how many years you've been here still, because it blows my mind to know that my kids are that old, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
ladies.
you.
And now we'll continue with you, Dr. Derfler.
Okay.
Deferred maintenance committee. Unless Jessica's here for that.
No,
No?
no. That's not her
You said she was here for something, deferred maintenance, whatever.
gig. Last month,
She wants to, it's more like 45. We weren't.
you don't,
Actually very
You're coming
old.
clean now.
I knew better, I thought.
you clearly don't teach math.
I was gonna let you off the hook. Summer.
Last month, John Hunick from Kraus Anderson, our professional services contractor, was here to prevent deferred maintenance needs in the school district of Amery. Again, think of deferred maintenance as that which needs to be fixed. There are level 1s, level 2s, level 3s. In regards to priority, 1s are something that needs to be addressed within the next 2, 3, 4 years. Then the priority 2s can wait some 6, 7, 8 years, and then priority 3s are very much on the back burner, 10 plus. Remember again, we have a high school that's built in 1976 and an elementary school that was built in 1967, so they're not new by any means. They're pretty heavily used. I promised last month to come forward with some opportunities for the community to engage with us in regards to how they feel we should proceed. Again, the spectrum is to do nothing, to go all the way through to do a referendum, or something in between. So there will be plenty of opportunity for folks to weigh in. So if you could head to the next slide, Becky, you'll see the plan for an opportunity to weigh in. So on June 28th, which was our last board meeting, we did the deferred maintenance presentation. That's completed, done. On Monday, August 30th, there will be a community meeting that will be held at the high school in the auditorium. We'll review the deferred maintenance needs and secure feedback from those who wish to be with us to provide it. Presentation on the educational adequacy for the district. Now, what is educational adequacy? That's things such as the feasibility of teaching science in outdated science rooms at the high school, or safety and security issues that exist at the elementary school. Those are educational adequacy pieces. Those all obviously come with, in many cases, the reconstruction of buildings and classrooms and price tags. So that's in addition to deferred maintenance, but it's all items that need to be discussed, up to and including, and I'll give you the 2 topics that come up rather frequently, childcare, our clubhouse, and also I have gotten inquiries from a lot of different parties about a pool. So that's happened many, many times. It's been brought up over the decade and a half that I've been here, and I'm sure it'll come up here on August 30th. So that'll be part of the conversation. On September 22nd, there will be a second opportunity to gather feedback, and we will also share our financials at this point. We work with Baird Financial, who gives us the rules of the road in regards to taxation and mill rates and revenue limits and all the rest of that fun stuff. And in order to talk accurately and transparently about this issue, we need to talk about what does it cost and what does it cost the taxpayer. So we'll have a presentation that will include that. And further, we want to get input from our community members in regards to what questions should we ask our community, because we are going to do a community survey. You'll see that at the bottom of this page. On September 29th, we'll do building tours. They'll be led by George Sigsworth, our maintenance guy, LHB, who is our contracted architect, and Cross Anderson, who is our professional services contractor. There are no three more knowledgeable people on these buildings than those three, and they will show you what we have talked about in the previous meetings, because it's one thing to hear about it, it's another thing to see it. The members of the board actually went and saw it. There are some spaces in these buildings that will make your head shake, and you'll wonder what's going on. So we'll go ahead and take a look at it. Community survey, we work with school perceptions. We have for a long time now. They will do a community survey that will span the first half of the month of October, from the 4th to the 15th. That would be something that a person would have the opportunity to complete right from the comfort of their own home. They don't have to go anywhere and do anything to complete it. And we'll see what our community thinks. Continuing, we'll have some more tours on the 6th for folks that couldn't make it the first time around or wanted to see something again. On the 25th, this is our regularly scheduled board meeting, we'll discuss the survey results of the survey that took place a couple weeks prior. So we'll see what people say about specific items on that survey. Community meeting in regards to the survey results to find out how they feel about what was returned for results. And then next steps at the November 15th board meeting. Could be next steps on a referendum. It could be next steps in a different direction altogether. And then a community meeting with the same purpose on the 17th to discuss where they think we should go. Anyone's eligible to come to the community meeting, and we hope that you do, and we hope that you share. You could also just show up and listen and learn and offer feedback in another way too. It doesn't have to be there at that time. So that's the timeline for community engagement over, call it, the next 4 or so months. Questions or comments that the board would like to make?
The community survey, the last time school perception survey was sent out, it was sent out by mail. I think there was also an online option,
Yep,
right? Is
there
that
is.
planned for both again this
Yes.
time?
School Perceptions is the outfit that does that, and they have a great deal of experience in making sure that people have access to offer their feedback. They'll also have the ability to give us some longitudinal data, as in questions that have been asked on multiple school perception surveys, so we can see where people stand. If for 3 consecutive surveys you get the exact same results from the same community, you could probably make some conclusions there. You could also identify an aberration, perhaps. So they'll help us make sure that people have access, and there'll be plenty of time for people to weigh in.
Are we sending that out by mail?
They will send that out.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
don't send that out. It would be by mail and via a link that you would
link.
go and complete it.
Okay.
Mark your calendars.
Mark your calendars. And this isn't the last time this information will be presented. People will not be in the dark in regards to when they get the stuff.
Yeah.
There's one date you want to clarify on the next page, Becky?
Yep, I saw that. Is
Okay.
it the Wednesday, the 27th?
Wednesday, the
Yeah.
27th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I have a typo in there?
It should be
Yes.
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
27th, yeah.
Okay.
We'll fix that.
All righty.
Thank you.
Okay. If there isn't any other feedback, that's all the information I have on that topic.
Now we're going to go to our preliminary budget.
Okay. It would be convenient and much easier if the budget timeline from the state of Wisconsin matched up with the budget year of a school district in regards to having all the information that you need to know when you get to July 1st. I'm here to tell you that's not the case. We have a signed budget, but there are still a lot of unknowns. There is apparently a per pupil increase that's going to happen for districts in Wisconsin. We don't know exactly how much. We don't know who it's for, exactly which districts it's for, if it's the same or if it's different. We don't know when it's going to arrive, and we don't know how it's supposed to be used. So that's a very nondescript proposal from the state at this point in time.
Thanks for the non-update.
That's a non-update on that front. We do have a signed budget. We do have officially have in place the ability to receive ESSER dollars in the state of Wisconsin, and then districts will subsequently receive those. But there's still a lot of unknowns. So I'm going to walk through the first couple of
And worth
slides.
mentioning that typically this time of year, we never know these
It is. It's pretty common that we don't know when we are in the part in July and August, but usually we know more than this. There have been years where we haven't known much into September and October. Those get a little sketchy because you can't really know how to spend if you don't know what you have to spend. That's not the way any of us conduct our personal affairs, probably, but that's the politics of the day in the state of Wisconsin and Madison, I guess, so it is what it is.
Been that way forever.
And quite honestly, this preliminary budget usually comes out a couple months previous to this each year, but we try to wait as long as we could to know as much as we could, and I don't think we know much more than a couple months ago on a lot of things.
It's
so.
been on the April,
Yeah.
May, June, and July meetings. It's just been stricken until we got here today. We just weren't ready to do it, and we're sort of still not because we don't know a few things. So, the beginning slide of the slide deck I will walk through. This is a historical enrollment trend running back all the way to 11-12, so it's 10 years worth of data. You'll see the most recent number is significantly lower than the number at the far left. It's also lower than 2 years ago. The entire state of Wisconsin witnessed approximately 15 to 20% enrollment drop. Much of that drop had to do with homeschool and students that enrolled in virtual options, because some of those options aren't within district, some of them aren't even within state. So there was a significant enrollment drop. We are actually in the middle of the curve in regards to the amount drop. There are neighbors of ours that have dropped hundreds of students in their district, and that makes for difficult situations. So our enrollment is down, and our hope is for it to be back up. So that's enrollment. Open enrollment, we have never brought more people in, and we have never had more people going out. We have looked at this and looked at this again and looked at this again. The trend that we have seen rather consistently is that we are having students, the number one destination of people that live in Amery that go to other districts is New Richmond. And it's been, in Word and in charting the data, a work convenience issue. They live in Star Prairie or Deer Park, they work in Stillwater or Somerset, they drop off on their way to work as opposed to backtracking and then having to go to work. That's what they have reported to us. The second, third, and fourth destinations are Clayton, Clear Lake, and Osceola. They're our neighbors. That's not too big of a surprise. And those could be any number of reasons. So that's open enrollment. And one more word of mention in open enrollment. The reason for the dramatic increase in open enrollment, about 5 or 6 years ago, there was an alternative window. You used to only be able to do it in the month of February. Now you can do it year-round, any day of the year. So that's the upsurge for everybody, not just here in Amery. Students with disabilities, with this data comes a price tag. When you have students that have disabilities, you're obligated to provide specific services, and with those services oftentimes comes increased staff or increased resource, which comes with increased cost. And we've never had more students with disability, and I'm here to report we've never had students with greater disability with greater intensity and severity. So that comes with even more resource. So there's a price tag increase there. Economically disadvantaged students, the picture of the school district of Amery has looked rather similar for the last 10, probably more like 20 or 30 or 40 years. We've always had 30, 35, 40% of our students that are economically disadvantaged. In some specific buildings, that percentage hits up towards the 50% range. At the elementary and intermediate, it has at times. High school kids and families oftentimes don't even complete the application, so we don't even know there's an economic disadvantage there. So that's a piece of the puzzle as well. The preliminary budget, I'm going to turn this portion over to Andy.
Sure, thanks, Dr. Durfler. If you can look at this, there's some history going back 6 years before this year on what we've had for budgets each year and how it's increased over time. If you look at our fiscal year that just ended, you'll see that we ended the year before audit with a surplus that will go into our fund balance of approximately $434,000. Like I said, the audit does change that slightly, but we're going to have somewhere around that area, which is a good thing. Some of the reasons for that are the costs we didn't incur because of COVID. I think we're not as much as we didn't have as much COVID expenses as some other districts had. We were very, very fiscally responsible on what we did to keep our kids safe and had some great outcomes of that. Then on to this year's budget. Like I said, the first thing I'll say about it is this is not right. So that's kind of what you have to know about it. So take it with a grain of salt at this point. We do have a lot of variables, as Dr. Durfler mentioned. Cecilia come the certification of aid on October 15th. We do have an estimate of that. But there's still at this point a lot of unknowns rather than knowns. So I did budget based on our enrollment going back up about halfway to where we were before pre-COVID, to be conservative on that. And then perhaps the year after this, we may hopefully get back up to where we're at pre-COVID and stabilize our enrollment. That's the outlook that I expect. So the next slide is our max revenue per member. Basically what this is what we get for each one of our kiddos from the state for equalization aid purposes. Pretty straightforward on that. The next one is our mill rate calculator, and what I expect to see for the mill rate this year. This will change slightly, but I think it's a pretty good number. And basically how you arrive at your mill rate is your total school levy divided by your equalized property value, which is not your commercial value, it's their valuation of all the district property. And then basically that's spread out among the number of membership, which is our enrollment. And then you arrive at, take that times 1,000 and you get our mill rate, price for the mill rate. So the next slide is another extrapolation of our mill rate going back years. And you will see here that I'm expecting to go up from 7.75 to 8.30 in this next year. The main reason for that is our equalization aid is down about 1.3 million. The main reason for that is in DPI's eyes, we're a much property rich because it's spread out under less, our enrollment's down, so it's spread out over less students. That's how they calculate that. And our revenue limit actually went up, which means we can raise more money. So naturally, if it doesn't come from the state, it comes from the other main area. Beyond that, I think, like I said, we're still far below the historical where we're at and in good position going forward. So, any questions on that?
Before questions, 2 points of emphasis. First, the auditor has said repeatedly since I've been in this district, and this is my 15th year, not as many as these two over here, has made clear that we need to put more money into our fund balance, and that was a commitment that Andy and I have made, and I know you have endorsed that as well on numerous occasions. And second, 8.3 in comparison to 7.75 is up. 8.3 in comparison to the years 2017-18 back is not even close. That's hundreds of dollars per $100,000 of home. That's $500-600 over the course of a $200,000 home. So it is a world of difference. We are a debt-free district who has buildings that are not falling apart, but are in pretty rough shape in some cases, in that they are 50 and 60 years old. But we are not in dire straits financially, and that makes us be in a good position to be able to address the needs that we have. And we'll engage the community about that and see how they feel. So that's how this connects to the engagement piece. Now, you can certainly chime in with your comments or questions.
Just point of clarity also, this budget does include our known federal ESSER money that we're getting. There's some that they have not figured out how much we're going to get and how we're going to get it and what we have to spend it on. So that's still in some works and a portion of that, so.
So are we looking at October before we get a more permanent, realistic?
No, the budget's due before that, so.
Okay. I'm just wondering of when.
I'd say you'll know a lot more by September,
Yeah.
maybe August. October seems awful late to me.
Been there.
Yeah.
We have been there.
And
Everyone's looking for the same answers in the state, but there's a lot going on there too. So we'll give them some grace, but we really do need to know rather soon,
Yeah.
so we know how to plan.
It seems to just keep bouncing around, so.
It does.
And like I said, it's a big task for DPI to figure out what to do with the money for all the schools, what the federal government says you have to do with it, and as you know, with bureaucracy, it doesn't go too fast sometimes, so.
It's all part of running public education, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's-
Better
Okay.
to not plan for it than plan for it and not get it.
We're hoping.
Yes, so.
And Sean, just to echo your comments, while the projected mill rate, potentially 8.3 is up a little from last year, it's still, significantly lower than the previous, 7 years?
It is.
So.
I'm talking about an
Just-
8.3 versus a 7.75. The distance there is 0.55. In order to understand it in real numbers, that's $55 per $100,000 of home. So if you have a $200,000 home, in the course of a year, it'd be $110 increase in property tax bill, or in tax bill from the school district. If this ends up being, the projection ends up being actual. We don't know that for sure yet, but it could go up slightly. But it
And
will
keep
not
in-
go up into the 11s. That's not happening.
And keep in mind that we only can control our portion of the mill rate. There's all the other pieces that go into that from the government, local government, so.
Townships and municipalities have every
do.
reason to raise whatever they're doing or do their valuations and things,
Correct.
which is independent from the school
It is.
district, so.
There are some dozen to 15 facets of your tax bill, schools being one of them. We are actually in a situation in the school district of Amery where the school portion of your taxes in the school district of Amery has decreased for 7 consecutive years. That's a fact. This could be an 8th year where it goes up slightly, but 7 years in a row, it went down.
Yeah.
And you can see that there, 11.94 to 11.92, and
Yeah.
then to .29, it continues to go down.
And that was some good planning based on all you old members of the board.
You're welcome.
Age is becoming an
Very
issue
well.
tonight. It's gonna be all over it.
Yeah.
It's like anything
I'm all
else.
over it, trying to make myself feel better tonight. No, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
A lot of experience sitting in the room tonight.
Experience, that's a.
Out of experience.
Take credit when the times are good and don't take the blame when times are bad.
Exactly.
No, it's amazing to be in this kind of a situation with our debt load and our finances. It really is at this point in time.
Yeah, you've seen
We're in a
much
good
different,
spot.
Yeah.
much different.
Much better spot than where we have been.
Yeah.
Other than us
I've
newbies
never been
sitting
part
here.
of a debtless district before for all intents and purposes,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
interesting.
So hopefully we can use that to our advantage to
Hopefully.
help for our buildings.
Figure
Some tough conversations and tough choices that I know you guys have
Yeah.
always, that you've made in the past to put us in the situation that we're in now, so. I think we talk about that usually when we talk about the budget, so.
Yep. Well, we'll move on to our action items, and we'll have our 2021-22 student academic standards. And now, Jessica.
This is a requirement for the State of Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. Each and every year, you have to have in essence, a board meeting where you go through your student academic standards, and that's what Jessica's here for. She is not only the intermediate school principal, but also curriculum coordinator, so this is falling under the umbrella of her responsibility. So go ahead, Jessica.
Okay, I won't start with age. I know that's a touchy thing tonight,
Being the new kid on the block, good choice.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Good choice.
so. Or presents every July, and so as Dr. Dürfler had said, that's what I'm here to do today. So this is our annual notice for the 21-22 school year, or had a fantastic framework, so it's probably very familiar to you. I'll go ahead and read our annual notice. The school district of Amery has a responsibility for maintaining a minimum program of instruction guaranteed by the Wisconsin State Statute of 118.30 and for initiating improvements beyond that minimum. Professional staff under the direction and supervision of the curriculum coordinator are delegated the responsibility for developing curriculum changes and additions. The school district of Amery School Board approves the adoption of curriculum standards on an annual basis. The school district of Amery establishes their own standards and locally aligns their curriculum and instruction. School District of Amery K-12 English Language Arts and Mathematics are based upon the Common Core state standards. All other program areas are based upon the most current Wisconsin model academic standards, the NGSS, which is the Next Generation Science Standards, and the C3, which is the College Career and Civic Life Framework for Social Studies Standards. This shows our program alignment. As you can see, our English Language Arts and our Mathematics is aligned with Common Core state standards. Our science is aligned with the Wisconsin Model Academic Standards and the NGSS standards. Social Studies is aligned with the Wisconsin Model Academic Standards and the C3, which is the College Career and Civic Life Framework for Social Studies standards. And then finally, our art, music, physical education, health, and CTE vocational are aligned with the Wisconsin Model Academic and National Standards.
Now, a word of mention on that, if you could go back to that, Becky. This isn't our choice. This is what we're required to do. And this is what we do because DPI requires us to do it. We don't have 6 other choices to pick from. This is what we are required to do. So that's what we do.
And then this is a visual that's been presented in years past that just shows the phase-by-phase rollout of the Wisconsin academic standards. We are very solid in being in phase 2 and 3. You know, we're looking at a new Ela curriculum. So as you can see on the bottom, it just shows that it's a continuum, and we are very, very strong in our academic standard alignment. Any questions?
I have none.
Are the standards available online or for people parents to view?
Absolutely.
Yes, all of our curriculum is available right off of our website.
Yes.
Newly updated website.
Yeah, there you go.
Good job. And you're in the phase 2 and phase 3 portions of this, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. And when do you expect to be done with the, this is for the new ELA curriculum, right?
Well, this visual really just goes through all of the academic standards, but you're right, and, you know, going through adopting a new ELA curriculum, Cheryl and I worked on it today, you know, we're really into, the point that we're at is looking at 2 different curriculums, how they align with our standards, how do they meet our needs here as a district. So really, you know, we kind of go between that phase 2 and phase 3 at this moment with our ELA. You know, and when we establish what our ELA curriculum is, then we move into the usage of it and then the assessment and instruction portion of it.
Okay.
Because the next order for curriculum, the planning years now is 4K through 5th, which is elementary, intermediate, thereby Jessica and Cheryl. That's the next order.
Yeah, and when are we set to put that order through then?
Well, it hasn't even been decided yet. You will see that in spring.
That's what I thought.
For next year.
This is far,
That's
out
for
yet.
next
Yes,
year.
That's what I
It
thought.
is.
We're not even close.
No,
Right.
we are vetting programs right now, looking at how they align with the standards and our needs, and we're working with a specialist from CISA to help us align those.
Yeah, this is for the next year's budget, right?
next
Yep.
year.
Okay.
Do we have a motion for accepting this?
I'll make a motion to accept the standards for the 2021-22 school year.
Second. Dale, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no? There we go. Now we'll move on to buying a truck. Well, we swing the gamut from one to the next, don't we?
We do. Okay, there are 3 truck quotes. What brings us here is the need for a new truck. It is now true that if you are interested in seeing the ground as you travel, you don't need to open the window. You can simply look down at your feet, and it's right there. So, it's straight out of the Flintstones. It's approximately 20 years old, so it is time, and it is budgeted for. We have 3 quotes as per the policy. The 3 quotes are Amery Chev, Hudson Chev, and Rosedale Chev. What we're looking at getting there is a 2021 Chevrolet Silverado 3500 HD. The part that you don't see here is we don't have a picture of the trade-in. You don't need to see a picture of that. But the trade-in value will allow us to get a plow for the front, so we could help with some of the plowing needs on district. So those are the 3 bids, and my recommendation would be to stay local, and further, my recommendation would be to go with the lowest quote, and that's Amery Chef.
And our trade-in value that we're gonna get from that truck, do we feel that we would get more on a trade-in than we would to sell outright?
Based on the research,
And I was amazed what they gave us for the trade-in, so,
Okay.
I'm not even gonna question it.
Okay.
Ryan, Andy, and George all worked on this to get these quotes, and Ryan, our new transportation director, absolutely to trade in and to get the plow that goes with it. That was his recommendation as well.
There we go.
So my concern is then, if we're taking the 20-year-old truck, and we're upgrading to this big fancy truck, do we think that they'll know what to do to drive this truck?
I think they'll have to figure it out.
I don't know, that seems to be a stark contrast.
Yeah.
My concern is as soon as Chuck retired, we get a new truck.
I know, he's gonna be upset.
There you
He's gonna be really upset. And I live next door to the band. Now, he's gonna be
He's
throwing
not
rocks.
that
and-
upset. He's at home during the day.
Yeah, I have a hunch he's over it, yeah.
He's okay.
He's gonna put those donkeys right out by my window and make them yell at me.
He'll probably go buy the trade-in.
He might.
So the 45,985 includes the plow or not?
The trade-in
Yeah.
is where
Trade-in
you get the
pays
plow.
for it.
The trade-in.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we purchase the truck from Amery Chevrolet.
I'd second that.
And second, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? No? None? All right, we bought a truck.
And it was budgeted for, by the way.
Yeah.
And they have it, right? We can get it,
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
right? We have it, we can get it, okay,
Yes.
okay.
All right, now we'll move on to our second reading of our policies.
Okay, last meeting, we talked about a non-district transportation policy. The change that you asked to be made was to change the only trips which exceed, rather than 75, 85 miles one way will be considered for non-district charter and motor coach bus transportation. And the logic behind that was some of our members of our conference move out towards the 75 with the addition of Altoona. We often travel to Hayward. 85 would then encapsulate that. The number could be anything that you want it to be. A point of emphasis I would like to make is that please don't lose sight of the fact that the decision whether to use coach transportation or your standard yellow bus comes from a conversation and a decision from Athletic Director Jeff Fern and Transportation Director Ryan Pease. And also, please know, whenever coach travel occurs in this district, it's not the district paying for the coach travel unless it was a team going to the state meet, and even then it might not be. It is almost always a booster club paying for that transportation. Hockey and wrestling are typically the ones that have boosters paying for those endeavors because their tournaments are simply farther away than anybody else's because they travel to compete. So those are my reminders and updates, and you can certainly chime in however you see fit on this policy.
So I know we've had a few comments about maybe changing the mileage. We were originally at 75 miles, we bumped it up to 85, and now I think some of our transportation staff would like to consider radial miles versus road miles. And in addition, maybe changing that 85 miles to 100 or even 120 to give them a little more opportunity to make a few extra trips, a few extra dollars for our own staff, let alone, the coach bus.
Yeah, I think
So-
when we talked about this originally last month, I was under the impression that this policy was geared towards always giving our employees the first option at that, and to make sure that they
Yeah.
help do that. So I think that we want to stick with that spirit. Maybe there's some.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there was a little confusion over
Yeah.
that. And I think the spirit is that we give our transportation staff first dibs at it. so,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We trust these people with our kids, every morning, every evening, all of our close events, and just nobody does it better. And that's part of the reason that we decided not to opt out and have not our own fleet. And you're leaving that up to somebody else. So we appreciate our transportation staff. They do a bang-up job. I think this is in that spirit. I'd entertain the idea of moving those miles, bumping those miles up to 125 radial miles, because I think that's just the easiest, cleanest way to do it.
I think they were looking at maybe road miles, weren't they?
I think it was the easiest, cleanest way to do it is radial
can't remember.
miles to do
Okay.
that, or at first, but then, because road miles just seems all-encompassing if you end up with,
Yeah, because radial miles could be closer than, you might have more road miles than radial miles,
Yeah.
right?
Sure, if
Yeah.
you're traveling
So-
from here to Durand,
Yeah.
I mean, there
Yeah.
isn't any straight shot ever.
Right.
I've driven it, it's not fun.
right,
It's totally different number.
yeah.
Yeah, it's over 90.
So I think if we're just
It could be.
comfortable, and obviously always that discretion is left up to
Yep, it's
the athletic director.
and
And in
bus
that
transportation.
spirit, also, probably just for cleaner and clarification, that it's left up to the athletic director and also the transportation director, which those conversations obviously would occur anyway, but just in case, I think it's just clean it up in the policy that we
Fair enough.
put that.
Yeah.
So you'd like to see a change in the trips, miles to 125?
I would,
I think,
what do you
yeah,
think?
Do you want to call
Dale?
it a radial?
They
or-
mentioned 120, but
120, 125, I think
120,
if we're gonna go
120 is
radial.
going to cover nearly everything,
Yeah.
other than a deep into the tournament experience where you're traveling to Marshfield or something.
Right,
Or
yeah.
going to state, because
And-
there's not a lot of state tournament series near here.
you know, at the same time, we don't want to take away the opportunity. You know, I know some sports, some teams or whatever might want to take a coach bus for a special trip or special weekend tournament or, you know, whatever it might be. So, you know, we don't want to take away that.
Sure, if
you
you're
know.
doing
It's an
state,
experience.
if you're
Yeah.
doing state wrestling in Madison, we can talk coach bus every day of the week.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you're doing level 3 playoffs in Osceola,
Right,
we could
Yeah.
probably drive a yellow one over there.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we bump the miles from 85 that we originally had talked about, and then to 125, and then with the addition of transportation director after the shall be approved by the athletic director and transportation director, and/or transportation director.
The first call Jeff makes is to Ryan as soon as something
course.
comes up. He doesn't know
Yeah.
who is available and what buses are available. It's the
Yeah.
first call he makes.
I think it covers, just in case somebody's on vacation, somebody is, and there's more than just athletic,
Yep.
covered in here as well. So that would also cover all of the rest of our organizations that are going somewhere.
Radial or road
Does-
miles?
Radial, I mean, it sounded, I don't know, what do you think? Because
Roads
like you
long.
said, I mean, if you're going to Durand.
Yeah, I know.
And do
We want the farthest one, because I think radial miles, Durand might be 90 miles away, but you might have to drive 100 miles, 100
Sure.
road miles to get there, so.
But is that going to get, no, I don't know. Probably not. Does that get complicated? That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I know, it's a
I
little.
know, depends
I would
on,
leave it
depends
at-
on what
I would
MapQuest
leave
one
it
you
at-
take, right?
I would leave it at miles and let Jeff and Ryan
Yeah.
figure it
Yeah.
out. They're gonna use their discretion, they'll make the right
Yes.
call.
That'd be
We'll talk
perfect,
to
just
the
miles,
coach.
Yeah.
just miles.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, you know, it says now, only trips which exceed, and if we say 125 miles one way will be considered for non-district charter and motor coach bus transportation. Is that, do we need to clarify anything about state, or would that, like,
No, I
state
think there's
is-
an implicit there,
Yeah.
and in almost every case, it's more than 125. I can't think the closest tournament series to here could be lacrosse.
Lacrosse.
I think
Right,
Lacrosse
okay.
is more than 125.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking Milwaukee, Madison, Appleton,
Green Bay, yeah.
Wisconsin Rapids.
Green Bay.
Marshfield, Green Bay.
Yeah.
No one's right down the road. We're in the wrong part of the state for a close to state tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we'd want to use radius miles is what that was what they suggested, so.
But we can just put miles.
Miles would be my
whatever, yeah.
recommendation.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll see that next time.
Well, that would be the second reading. If you want to see it
You
again, we
want it?
certainly can bring it back.
I think if we all had agreed on those certain changes for this policy, then we could go ahead and make a motion to adopt the policy with the aforementioned changes.
Changes, okay?
So I would do that. I would,
Yeah, sure.
I would move to adopt the new non-district transportation policy with the aforementioned changes of 125 miles and with the addition of the and/or transportation director for approval.
Okay. In a second,
Second.
Dale? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No? Nope. All right, that's passed. And if there's a chance, could we see that next meeting?
Absolutely.
And it just, yeah, so we have that
You'll
one.
see it.
All right, now we're on to our wellness policy. And I don't think there was any changes. from
There
last
was
time.
the top of page 3 in blue.
Thank you.
Oh,
It
that's
reads,
right.
Staff shall serve as role models for students, and then what's been struck out is food should not be used as a reward, and change that to teachers are encouraged to use non-food alternatives as rewards.
Yeah.
So, simple change.
Yep.
And that was the only change.
I'll make a motion that we approve the wellness policy.
Thank you, Aaron. A
Second.
Char. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no? Okay, motion's carried. Now we have our extra C contracts.
So we've gone all the way through the cycle of contracts, which is support staff, letters of appointment, then teaching contracts, then administrative contracts, and the next item on the docket, always in the month of July, is your extracurricular contracts. And that's needed, obviously. We fire up sports here in the matter of 2 weeks for the fall. It's hard to believe, but that's true. And we'll be competing in a matter of less than 2 months. So we need to get those extra C contracts out, and that's also for student activities that are not athletic but yet co-curricular. So all those contracts would need to be approved, and we would send them out and get that all set in place.
I'm trying to think, Dale, when was the last time we looked at this?
Well, we have a committee that looks at this, Tom Benson, Jeff Fern, Josh Gould, and myself. We looked at it, we've oftentimes had other members of staff involved in that, but those 4 individuals, we look at it every single June, and we did so again. But a change hasn't been made in recent years.
Yeah, that's what I was
The last change is approximately 3 or 4 years ago. But there are some changes that occur internally. Typically, it hasn't gone to the board, but if you want it to be something the board weighs in on, you certainly can. The amounts that people are paid for various activities, those have changed by that committee, not by board action. And some have been omitted, as in gotten rid of because the activity doesn't exist anymore. And some have been added because it's an activity that didn't exist but now does. So those changes have been done without board action. You've just approved contracts. But if you want to do it differently, you certainly can.
I know we looked at it, it's been a while, and I think it's better than what it was.
It is. We're not all
But-
the way to where we need to be, but we're certainly not as low as we once were 5,
Yeah,
6,
it's
7, 8
much
years
better,
ago.
Yeah.
but
is.
it could probably still be looked at.
As I recall, didn't we just put a lump sum of money into it and then the administration?
Kind of divvied it.
Well, the change that was made was the longevity pay.
Okay.
And the longevity pay for someone that's coached a sport for X number of years, when you get out 10-plus years, you start getting extra pay. We want our coaches to be able to coach for a long period of time in one particular area.
Yeah.
It helps the program succeed. So that was the change, and then the numbers were rounded, they all end in 0,
Yeah.
And again, some was added and some was taken off the list because it just doesn't happen anymore.
Okay.
Is there, for determining like coaching and activities, I know some of like the activities, not necessarily coaching because they're kind of expected in set hours, but like the activities, some of the after school or weekends, do our advisors turn in hours that they spend?
If it's an extra C, like for instance, you're coaching chess club as the advisor, you don't turn in hours. You are paid an extra C sum of X dollars per activity, so they don't have to fill out a timesheet.
So we don't, I mean, I guess I'm not asking if they have to. I understand that. What I'm asking is, do they ever record how many hours that they are devoting to those particular activities so that we can see if we go back and look at their pay schedule of X number of dollars per year versus how many hours are being put in, is there documentation?
Payroll does assign for retirement purposes certain amount of hours for each of these. So
And
I
those
guess-
are pre-calculated based on an average of, or?
like I said, that's probably a question I find out for you, with how Twyla figures that out. And exactly, I know how I did in my previous district, but I don't, like I said, I can check with her to see, and I can email you that
I
information.
guess I just ask because, well, a long time ago, if we're talking about age tonight, when I was an FFA advisor, I had like an hourly contract, not just so I had X number. It was this sum of pay, but you had to put in this X number of hours to get that sum of pay. So I guess that's why I'm asking if that's something that we do, if that's something that we can look at.
The coach or advisor hasn't tracked it.
No.
I think I'd be very safe in saying that if they did, they'd all be working for about $2 or $3 an hour.
Well, that's why I'm kind of curious.
That's why we don't want them to do that.
I know. I guess that's why I'm kind of curious as to that, so that if we, I mean, I understand that that we have budget concerns in the next coming years and things like that, but I think that would be, I mean, even if we chose not to do anything about it financially for a hot minute, it would be something that I would be interested in seeing and that I think
Sure.
the community might be
The
interested in seeing.
the easiest solution would be to put X dollars into the extra C salary schedule, and then you increase where the workload is heaviest. Because there are some that are some areas that are heavier than others,
Right.
certainly.
Yep. That's what I
And
think
we
we
could
did
bring
last time.
this and then the proposed increase back to you if you would like us to do that.
I mean, I certainly feel comfortable approving the extra C salary schedule for tonight, but I think it'd be prudent to just follow up with that a
Yep.
little bit more in depth if,
I certainly will with Jeff Fern. I would, again, be safe in saying there's no one on the list that's being overpaid.
I
This is
I
a lot of
completely
work.
agree.
Yeah.
And I guess that was my question when I'm really looking, of course we see it when we look at the vouchers and we do that. But when you're really looking at a list like this, I think it really jumps off the page at me to see that, you know, I know the number of hours like our head football coach puts in, and you're getting $1,500. I know because I coach football, again, we're gonna go back to age, and I was an FFA advisor, and I know the hours that entails. So I think if we just look at those things.
Absolutely. Josh Gould, our former athletic director, now high school principal, made a firm commitment to try and be more competitive, and Jeff has picked up that baton and is doing the same. We're not where we need to be. We're not all the way there, but we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
So you would need a motion if you wanted to approve those extra C
Would you
contracts.
happen to have the total amount?
I haven't
spent?
totaled it up, but we can certainly do that. We can put it on the agenda for a future board meeting if you'd like.
Yeah, just to see where we're at.
Absolutely.
And if it would track it at all.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We'd like to go ahead and approve these tonight so that we can move
Yeah,
on.
move on.
So I would move to approve the extracurricular salary schedule for the 2021, 2022 school year as written, and then a follow-up at a future board meeting this
Yeah.
year.
And I'll get you that information about what we assign kind of for
Yep.
WRS purposes and things like that, because I do earn from that, so.
All right, that'd be
I'll get that
great.
for you. I'll send it all in an email. to all
I would
of you.
appreciate
Yeah.
that. I think that just deserves a little bit more looking into. so.
Absolutely. Yep.
I'll second that motion.
All right, Aaron.
And since I have a family member as a middle school coach, I will choose not to vote on this.
All right.
Sounds good.
Is it conflict of interest, I'm
As a
assuming you would?
conflict of
All right.
interest, yeah.
All right, then all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? No. Motion's carried.
All right.
Next, we have the personnel.
Okay, we have new employment contracts for special ed para, Jessica Stokeland, extra C contracts going out for Amanda Azapira for JV girls basketball, Alan Carlson, middle school cross-country assistant, Carl Granica, moving from girls to boys for basketball, JV, Lindsay Myers, DI coordinator, Matt Patterson for varsity softball, Jeffrey Stauner for assistant boys soccer coach, reassignments, as in moving within district from one position to the other. Erin Christensen from nutrition to a para, Michelle Acero from para in special ed to a para in 4K, Jennifer Winchell from school nutrition to a para, and resignations for Becky Dahlberg in school nutrition, Carl Granica for girls JV basketball, Kelly Gruby and Nicole Klopotic for academic and behavior support para, and lastly, Susie Thayer, high school guidance secretary.
All right. Any questions?
Make a motion that we approve personnel.
Second.
Aaron and Dale, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion's carried. And now I'll take a motion to go back into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
All right. So we'll go into closed session considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has